The Titans have finished 2 weeks of training camp. Week 3 is underway. We are going to talk about everything. Jamarco Jones has been released. What are the Titans going to do at right tackle? The defense has been dominating most of the team periods, and Will Levis is stacking days. This is the Music City Audible podcast. Let's get to it.
We the ones they talking about.
Broadway Sports Media.
Choose your fighter.
Justin and Justin Titans podcast show.
Some of it was bad, but hopefully you probably piece something together.
Outstanding.
There's an earthquake in the middle of the podcast. Unbelievable.
We're begging for listeners. That's all we do.
We all we got. Hey, Titans on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Music City Audible podcast presented by Broadway Sports Media in partnership with 440 Sports. I'm Justin Graver, and joining me, as always, Justin Melo here to talk about another week of Titans training camp gone by. Justin, how's it going?
Doing well. There's a lot to get into today. Surprise release, continued position battles, a rookie quarterback showing improvement day by day. Excited to cover it all with you.
Yep, and the Titans play football this week.
They sure
We're
do.
recording this on Monday. They play on Saturday. That is going to be exciting because we're finally going to get to see this team take the field again. But before we get there, we got a long way to go this week. I mean, it's going to be a slog of a week, I feel like, because it's just the excitement is palpable, and we're going to have to wait until Saturday to see anything on the field. But we still don't know how many starters are going to play in the game. We don't know if they're going to just throw all the backups out there. We'll wait to see that. We are going to do a separate preseason Game 1 preview looking specifically at the position battles to watch, the players to watch, and things to look out for in that game. So stay tuned to the YouTube channel for that. It's going to be a YouTube exclusive breakdown coming later this week. We will dive deep into the first preseason game. This podcast today, we're going to focus on training camp and what has been happening since our last time recording last week. And the biggest storyline is Jamarco Jones getting into another fight and getting not only kicked out of practice, kicked off the team. This was crazy. I mean, did he deserve it? Is Mike Vrabel sending a message? What are your thoughts on this move, Justin?
Well, I certainly didn't see it coming. In fact, Jamarco Jones ruined a YouTube exclusive video that we were going to drop on the right tackle battle because we were operating under the assumption that he was going to be your starter. And I do think he was the heavy in-house favorite. Now, to summarize, there was a Tuesday practice, I guess roughly a week ago, where he got banished to the sand pit. I picture him like a big man sitting in a sandbox that you would see in a kindergarten school for fighting with Jeffrey Simmons. I didn't think that was probably a big deal, right? Like, you can go on Twitter every day, follow all 32 teams. A fight breaks out at 5 different facilities, right? Like, that's training camp stuff. But then 2 days later, and I wish we had video of it, but we don't, it was a blindside block on Chance Campbell that was described as very dirty and very dangerous, right? To the point where linebacker Azeez Al-Shire was up in arms, was apparently yelling at Mike Vrabel about it. Rand Carthon, I believe, was present and got involved. Not a good look from what we gather. And you saw Mike Vrabel talk about it after practice. He said, it's not the way we want to practice. You want to protect your teammates. It sounds like it was ugly, right? Again, I wish I had video of it, but a blindside, was it a cut? I don't remember if it was a cutback now or not, but it sounds like it was extremely dangerous and could have delivered a serious injury, right, to second-year linebacker Chance Campbell, who missed a lot of last season with injury as well, right? So that's a guy that's trying to make the team. It's imperative that he stays healthy in order to maximize his chances of making the team. And here you have a teammate potentially taking him out. So luckily, it seems like Chance Campbell avoided serious injury, but the Titans had seen enough, right? 2 days after that fight with Jeffrey Simmons, which, again, I don't think had huge bearing on the decision. It didn't hurt, right? It certainly didn't help his chances of sticking. Once you've got the dirty block 2 days later, it's like, you know what? This guy fought a couple days ago. Now he almost injured a teammate. Again, I think the latter of which was significantly more serious. They cut him. They sent a message. They moved on, and now there's a whole bunch of new names vying to be the starting right tackle. But if you're Jamarco Jones, I mean, we don't know the guy personally. You got to be feeling a bit sick, right? You hope there's a sense of accountability because what a wasted opportunity to claim a starting job.
Yeah. I mean, he had the golden opportunity to be the starting right tackle for the first 6 games of the year. You play well with that opportunity. You may keep it for the rest of the season, and who knows, could turn your whole career around. Instead, he's on the street looking for a new team. Titans signed Jones to a 2-year, $4.8 million contract before last season. He will cost them this season $1.475 million against the cap to not play for the team. He didn't play for the team. He never played for the Titans. He was signed as like potential starting guard, potential swing guard tackle, was going to be the starting right tackle this year potentially if he held that onto that position throughout camp. And here we are now. He's off the team. He's just, I don't know. It's a terrible look for him. And I guess I like what Mike Vrabel did there because, he was being very strict about fighting in practice. It obviously hurts the team. He doesn't want them to develop habits that will carry over onto game day. You fight during a game, you get a 15-yard penalty, you could get thrown out of the game. So he's trying to nip that in the bud before it could even start. And here Jones is fighting twice in a week span, 3 days time span. Like, that's just not how you practice, like you said. And they actually specifically asked Vrabel about his relationship with Jones because he's known him since high school. He recruited him to come to Ohio, tried to recruit him to come to Ohio State. And they said, is it hard to cut him? No, like, is it hard to cut someone you've known since high school? And his response was, it's not hard to protect the team. So I don't think Vrabel was messing around with this one. It does leave a big hole at right tackle because you have a bunch of guys competing out there. Chris Hubbard recently signed. Jalen Duncan, 6th-round rookie, is in the mix. John Ojukwu, undrafted free agent, in the mix. But Ojukwu actually left practice last week early with an injury. He was not out there on Monday, so we'll see if he can even get his name back into the right tackle battle. You mentioned we want to do an exclusive YouTube video on the right tackle battle. We still want to do that. So we're going to look at it with the new picture. That's going to be coming later this week. Who's going to win right tackle? Stay tuned to the channel for that. We're not going to get any more into it now, but we are going to talk about Justin Murray, who in his career, he has 12 starts at right tackle, 8 starts at right guard. He was talking to reporters on the field after practice today, and they asked him, what do the Titans want from you, basically? What do they tell you they want you to do? And he said, play a little right guard, play a little right tackle. So he's probably in the mix for the starting right tackle battle. Maybe he's like a swing guard depth signing as well. The point is the Titans are going to keep trying everything they can at right tackle. And again, we'll discuss that a lot more in the video coming out. So let's talk more about what's happened at training camp practices besides the fights. It's been a rough time for the offense out there. The defense has reportedly been winning a bunch of team periods, a bunch of days in general. Kevin Byard said that he feels like the defense is winning almost every day. Now, this is somewhat normal for this time of year. The Titans are putting in a new offense. Now, granted, according to Coach Dave McGinnis, who was on the OTP over the weekend, the Titans are done with their base general level install and are now adding on wrinkles to that level of install. So I don't know if we can really blame this on being in a new offensive system because they seem to be at least fully installed and picking it up. But of course, there's going to be chemistry issues along the offensive line. 5 guys who have not played together with each other. Ryan Tannehill throwing to DeAndre Hopkins is not, that connection is still growing. And apparently Hopkins is out there making a lot of plays, but those seem to be coming in 1-on-1s, 2-on-2s, and 7-on-7s, and not as much in the team periods. The Titans have worked a lot of red zone drills. They've worked a lot of 2-minute drills, and the offense keeps stalling. The defense keeps winning. At what point, Justin, do we get concerned with the offense versus just chalking it up to, well, it's this time of year, the defense is usually ahead?
Look, I get what you're saying about the whole time of year thing, the defense usually being ahead. And even if they're done with their install, it's worth acknowledging, Shane Bowen's going on year 3 or so, or year 3 is the official defensive coordinator, year 4 probably, all in all, when that one year where he didn't have the title, but he was the defensive coordinator essentially. And you look at a lot of the guys that make up that defense, guys that have been there for a long time: Jeffrey Simmons, Dina Coatri, Harold Landry, Christian Fulton, Kevin Byard, Amani Hooker. A lot of continuity on the defensive side of the ball. Not much on the offensive side outside of Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. You got a new offensive coordinator, a new quarterbacks coach, new tight ends coach. Some of those guys, shuffled away into new positions that were already on the roster, but new O-line coach, whole new starting 5. You don't even know who the starting right tackle is. So I get that part of it, what you mean, but I am concerned, in all honesty, and I'm going to be concerned. There's a difference between being concerned and overreacting, right? I don't think I'm overreacting, but I'm concerned because I was concerned in March, right? When you look at this starting lineup, right? You don't know what they have at left tackle, left guard. Even though I have a ton of confidence in Peter Skoronski, he still never played an NFL game. Aaron Brewer making the switch to center. Right guard is, they probably got worse there, signing Brunskill to replace Nate Davis. Right tackle is a bit of a disaster right now. Receiver, obviously, a big upgrade with DeAndre Hopkins. We were very concerned about it before that, but he is still, we've brought up the reservations. We're excited about it, but he's still, a 31-year-old. We've been burned before recently with some of these older receivers coming off injury. So I've been concerned about the offense since January, February, March. It was a terrible offense last year. So I'm concerned about it until I see that it's a good offense again. So you're already concerned. You start getting all these reports. The defense is winning every single day. Kevin Byard sounded really, really happy, right, when talking about that. So I think, you got to sort of I'm walking a fine line between being concerned and overreacting. I don't think I'm overreacting, but I think you'd be silly. If you watch this offense last year, what the starting lineup is. There's so many question marks. You'd be silly to not at least be a little concerned.
Yeah, and the Titans are so restrictive with the footage that's allowed to be captured at practice with what people are putting on social media. We see all these clips from other teams of starting quarterbacks in 11-on-11 scrimmage type settings, making amazing throws, and we don't get to see any of that from the Titans. Every once in a while, the Titans social account will tweet a great catch or something that Treylon Burks is making, or a Reggie Roberson mini highlight reel or something, but we really don't get to see a lot, so it's hard to react to anything but the practice reports, and the practice reports are that the defense continues to win. And yes, Will Levis has had some great days in the red zone. Ryan Tannehill has had some good red zone periods as well over the last week and a half, and so has Malik Willis. But when it comes to let's talk about Monday's practice, because they ran a 2-minute drill for each of the three quarterbacks. They got the ball with 1:10 to go, and they needed to get a field goal. The first team offense had 4 straight incompletions, which led to, what would have been a loss in a real game. The second team offense, yeah, exactly. Second team offense led by Malik Willis got in position for a 53-yard field goal try. Caleb Shudak went out to kick it, and it came up short. Now, granted, they're practicing in heavy wind today, Monday. They practiced in heavy rain on Friday. They practiced in the rain on Thursday before moving inside because of lightning. So there's been some weather elements that definitely play a part in this, but that's football. You're going to have weather elements during the season. So it's actually great that they get a chance to practice it now. You can't really blame that for, a kicker missing a 53-yard field goal coming up short. I get it, a 53-yard field goal is not an easy kick for NFL kickers, but most of them that are missing that in the year 2023 are not missing it short. They're missing it wide because it's a far kick and a narrow, uprights. Then Will Levis gets out there, leads the same drill, gets them in position for a 48-yard field goal, bangs off the left upright, again, Caleb Shudak. So we can talk about all of this at once, I guess. Caleb Shudak was 9 for 9 in his individual kicking period earlier in the practice. Then he went out for this, I guess it was a team, special teams period that he was kicking, and he kicked 9 for 9, which is great. Then he goes out in the actual pressure situation in the 2-minute drive simulation, game's on the line, go make this kick to win, and he misses both of them. It's all wrapped up. Is that the offense? Is that the special teams? Whatever. It's all a concern. It's great to see Willis and Levis put the team in position for a field goal. A 53-yarder, you'd like to be a little closer. A 48-yarder, that's a very makeable field goal. Of course, the Titans lost on a very similar situation in week 1 last year, so it's not that makeable, but it should be a makeable field goal is my point. So you love seeing the quarterbacks, the young guys, put them in position to get that field goal. You'd love Ryan Tannehill, your starting quarterback, to go lead a touchdown drive in that situation, or at least get the field goal. But where do the concerns end? Is it the offense's inability to move the ball, or is it the kicker who's not making these kicks? Of course, he's in a competition with Trey Wolf, who did not kick on Monday, so we don't know how he would have done in that situation. But again, it's all about where is the concern level? And for me, at this point in the offseason, it's not that high. It's not red flags, ring the alarms high, but it's certainly not oh, it's fine, they'll figure it out over the next few weeks.
No, that's how you end up with Dennis Daly at left tackle, right? Just saying it's fine and they'll figure it out. No, I agree with pretty much. You essentially, repeated a lot of, not repeated, but agreed with a lot of what I said in terms of you're walking a fine line where you're concerned, but you're not overreacting.
Yeah, it's a nuanced thing here. It's not super black and white. Yeah,
context, right, is important to it. In terms of the 2-minute drill, I think to answer your question, concerns about both. I think the offense and the special teams and the kicking situation, which, by the way, I do want to get into because I don't feel like you and I have covered it enough. We spent a lot of time talking about cornerbacks and obviously right tackle, linebackers, right, with the Jack Gibbons and Monty Rice situation. I don't think we've talked about this kicker battle enough. But the first thing I want to say is, A, you'd like to see the offense get him a little bit closer. That 53-yarder, as you said, difficult but makeable kick. 48 yards, more makeable. But when I'm analyzing this situation, I'm thinking, give me one more 5-yard completion. Let's get him at 43 yards. Absolutely no excuses, right? Like 48 yards, makeable but difficult. 43, I don't want to hear anything. You got to go out and make a 43-yard field goal. So I wish the offense got him in that situation. One more 5-yard completion would have got him there. In regards to that kicking situation, I am a little concerned that he went 0 for 2, Caleb Shudak did, while simulating that 2-minute drill, because as you said, that's the closest you're going to get to simulating an in-game pressure situation. It's great that he goes 9 for 9 during a special teams period where there's no pressure. No one's watching him kick. Of course, the coaching staff is, but you know what I mean. He's just out there going out free willy and kicking the ball. That's great. But then when you got the defense on the field, it's 4th down, you're simulating that situation, you come into the game, you got to make that kick. That's the closest you're going to get, right, to that type of situation that they were in last year. You said week 1, they lost that game to the New York Giants, and you only get 17 of them, right? Every game is so critical. So those game-winning kicks, those moments are so important. I am concerned that he went 0 for 2, and it's worth bringing back up that the weather situation wasn't great. And I saw a few people mention that, when they were reporting that he missed those kicks. But you got to go out there and make them. If you're playing week 1 in East Rutherford, for example, against the Giants, the weather might not be great in early September right there. So it is, I know, and that was last year. I know they got the Saints this year, but you know what I mean. So not great. And that kicking situation, because I want to talk more about it, I've been keeping close tabs on it. I've spoken to a lot of people, some sources around the team and whatnot. And it sounds to me like the preseason is what's going to determine that position. Like, from what I've gathered through practice reports and people I've spoken with, it's been fairly close, right? Like Caleb, like one is not drastically outperforming the other. Trey Wolff has a big leg. I think he's got a bigger leg than Caleb Shudak does from a distance standpoint, but he's still working on the accuracy, right? He's missed. You talked about how Shudak's 53-yarder was short. Well, some of Wolff's have been wide, right? They've had the distance, but they haven't had the accuracy. So it's been close, but from people I've spoken with, and it probably goes without saying, but the preseason's going to be huge, right? That's probably what's going to determine, because in practice training camp so far, I don't know, and I don't think that one has really distanced himself from the other, but that's more than likely going to happen during the preseason, right? Like, and it'll be the slimmest of margins. One of them will miss a big kick, right? Whereas the other one will make it. Or one of them will miss a gimme, right? A 38-yarder, and the other one will make a 42-yarder. That's ultimately what's going to determine this back.
Yeah, and I think that it'll be interesting to see how they're used in the preseason. Is it going to be you get this game, you get this game, and whoever's on top by the last preseason game plays? Or is it going to be like, you're kicking the first half, you're kicking the second half? If we don't get any field goal opportunities in the second half because it's the 4th string offensive line, you're shit out of luck for this week, and next week you'll kick first. Like, it'll be fun to see how they decide to do that. But another note on this, I think I could spin this in a bit of a positive way, because while the defense has continued to dominate, that creates more learning opportunities for the offense. And does it mean that the Titans defense is going to be great this year? Not necessarily. But a lot of us have pretty high hopes for what this defense can be. The Athletic Football Podcast just tried to do a podcast where they project the top 10 defenses that are going to, who's going to be a top 10 defense this year, and the Titans were in that mix for them. So returning all the guys, like you mentioned, having that continuity, and then, potentially upgrading some of the starters with an Azeez Al-Shire. Who knows if he's going to be an upgrade, but he could be. You got Sean Murphy-Bunting joining the cornerback room. The depth is lacking, but Arden Key joining the offense.
Should be a lot better than Bud Dupree was, right? So,
absolutely, and early returns from training camp have been nothing but positive on Key. We talked about him in our Stock Up, Stock Down episode last week and how well he's played. So maybe it's good for this Titans offense to be practicing against a high-level defense, because it'll, show them what can work and what can't work against a good defense. And Ryan Tannehill talked last week about his connection with DeAndre Hopkins and how that's continuing to grow, and mentioned that, a play where they missed on each other, where Hopkins wasn't exactly where Tannehill expected him to be at the exact time, that's a chance where the two of them can get together and talk and grow. And it was on a 4th down play in a similar, 2-minute type drive that they missed each other on. And Tannehill said, next time we see that, we will know what we're supposed to do. We'll be on the same page. So if that situation comes up in a game, we've had this experience in practice where it was a failure, and we can go make it a success in a game. Now, he says that, last Friday, and then on Monday, they're in another 2-minute drive situation, and they have 4 straight incompletions. So it might take more than one missed opportunity for them to really figure it out and get together. But that's the positive spin on it, is the more you mess up in practice, the more learning opportunities you have to get better when you go review the film and then get out there for the next day. So is that like a little bit of a spin that is maybe, I don't know, being too optimistic potentially? But I do think that there are positives, even if the offense is struggling out there. There are positives to take away. Number one, the defense might be great, and number two, it's more chances to get better.
Yeah, I mean, like some of those misfires, as you talked about, getting on the same page. That's just general, training camp stuff, and it's par for the course this time of year. And as I said, they're dealing with a significant amount of changes, right? Compared to, I would say, most teams around the league. Significant changes to the staff and significant changes to the personnel. 5 players playing in different positions on the offensive line, only 1 returning starter. So, of course, that it's a big difference in most teams in the league. So there are going to be growing pains. And in all honesty, best case scenario, you'll probably see a few of those growing pains throughout the early portion of the season as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And while we're talking about the offense versus the defense, I do want to mention a few things on the defensive side, and that's that the secondary has apparently, according to reports, been very good out there. And I specifically want to highlight Christian Fulton because I went in on him pretty hard on our last episode, talking about how his little injury scare was a big stock down and this is such a big year. And all those things are still true. But the fact of the matter is he didn't really miss any time with that little hamstring scare. Turned out to be nothing. He's been practicing since. And he's looked really good, according to everyone who's been at practice, including like Albert Breer, who was out there for a day, and general national media figures who are rolling through. Everyone says Christian Fulton looks like a lockdown guy, ready to make a big difference in this contract year for him. And he needs to. And I think that that's great. And I just wanted to point that out after how hard I was on him on our last episode, that I just want to say, like, I've seen all the positive reports too, and I'm very encouraged by it. But none of that will mean anything if he can't stay healthy. So hopefully he can and continue to play how he's played in practice. Jim Wyatt also wrote today that Amani Hooker has been everywhere, and he's been noticing him more and more. Obviously, we know Kevin Byard is, an all-pro level safety back there. So they have the talent in the secondary, and apparently they're playing well together. They're gelling well together. Sean Murphy-Bunting had a red zone interception last week. Like, this group is playing really well at a high level. So while we're, condemning the offense for how poorly they've played, we should be sure to praise the guys on defense who have, played really well at the same time.
Yeah, and none of that surprises me, right? Like I think Christian Fulton's a really good football player when he's healthy and on the field, and I think Amani Hooker is even better and an outstanding, exceptional safety when he's on the field. Borderline, top 10, 15 safety in the NFL, in my opinion. So, and Sean Murphy-Bunting was a great addition. He's been very vocal. You've seen him talking at practice. You've seen some of the press conferences have been outstanding. So, Mike Vrabel praised Elijah Molden as well. And I think it was Kevin Byard who talked about the transition Molden is making to some of those third safety looks that you and I have covered well on this pod since we found out that he was playing that role. So this secondary, if it stays healthy, and that's the key, because 2 of its best players, being Amani Hooker and Christian Fulton, have both been injury prone. But if it does stay healthy, I think it's going to be a very, very good secondary this year.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's good because, we talked about the lack of safety depth a lot on this podcast. We had a whole, YouTube breakdown talking about how the Titans should go out and re-sign Josh Kalu, who spent basically his whole career in Tennessee to this point. Well, that's not going to happen. We need these guys to play well, and we need the depth they have to play well, because Josh Kalu is off the market. As you broke on Monday, Josh Kalu has signed with the Washington Commanders. So I just wanted to let you touch on that really quick.
Yeah, it's a 1-year deal for Kalu with the Washington Commanders. He worked out for them on Monday morning, and the workout obviously went very well because the Commanders signed him to a contract just hours later. A guy that, as you know, I've been clamoring for Tennessee to bring back. I don't love what they have at depth safety. He played nearly 500 snaps for the defense last year. As we said, Amani Hooker, Elijah Molden, Christian Fulton, all these guys dealt with injuries. I thought Kalu was one of those unsung heroes that sort of stepped up to the plate and helped keep things together on the defensive side of the ball. He's also a really, really good special teams player. I was clamoring for them to bring him back. They went in another direction, one that surprised you and I when they signed A.J. Moore to a 1-year deal, pursued a reunion with him as opposed to Kalu. We talked about it last week, but if you don't remember A.J. Moore, we don't really blame you because he suffered a season-ending injury against the Giants in week 1 last year. So he was a Titan last summer, but he only lasted, I think, 1 quarter during the regular season. It was very unfortunate when he went down with that injury. But because of that, because they didn't have a lot of time to evaluate him, and because I thought Kalu played pretty good football and they're very familiar with him, I thought they would pursue a reunion with Kalu. They haven't. They signed AJ Moore, as we said, and as soon as that happened, Kalu he worked out for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then he worked out for the Washington Commanders, and the Commanders assigned him to a one-year deal. As you said, I was first to report on my Twitter page. Best of luck to Kalu in Washington. That's something I'm going to be monitoring closely. And look, no general manager gets it right all the time. No general manager is perfect. But two sort of underrated moves that I'll be analyzing throughout the year as we continue our evaluation of Rand Carthon as a general manager. One of them is that one right there. I want to see how AJ Moore plays versus how Joshua Kalu plays. And look, it might not matter, right? If there's no injuries at the position, it might not even be one worth evaluating, but that is one I'll be keeping an eye on. And secondly, more notably probably, is George Fant with the Houston Texans. We all know Titans fans wanted him real badly. Well, he ends up signing with the Texans to be a swing tackle. What happens in practice? Their starting right tackle, Titus Howard, broke his hand and is going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. Now, I haven't really looked at the Texans depth chart, but I'd be shocked if it wasn't George Fant. That's the new starting right tackle, right? While Titus Howard recovers from that broken hand. So that'll be a great opportunity as well to analyze George Fant for the Houston Texans, a division rival at right tackle, who, by the way, has a lot of common opponents with the Titans those first few weeks of the year. So they'll be facing a lot of the same edge rushers. George Fant versus whoever the heck starts in Tennessee at right tackle, and then AJ Moore versus Joshua Kalu on probably a smaller scale.
Yeah, and we'll see. George Fant may not get to play because 4 to 6 weeks would be like a week 1, 2, or 3 return for Titus Howard. So there some speculation that he might be back for the season opener. He may miss the first 2 or 3 games. We'll have to wait and find out on that one. But it's a great point because the Titans could have had George Fant for probably a little bit more money than they paid Chris Hubbard, and they decided to not offer that for whatever reason. Maybe they talked about it last week. Maybe they liked Hubbard more. Maybe they didn't like Fant. Maybe it was out of their asking budget. Who knows? We'll have to see how that unfolds, but I like that you brought that up. In other former Titans news, Zach Cunningham signed with the Eagles, so don't ever have to think about him again, but maybe he'll go win a Super Bowl with Philly or something. I don't know.
Him and Marcus Mariota. Maybe they'll both win a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, there you go. Let's talk about the rookie quarterback because Will Levis has been stacking days. And I know we just talked a lot about how the offense is struggling, but Will Levis has looked really good, even in the days the offense was struggling, even throwing in the rain. Lots of drops were, he suffered from lots of drops in that practice with guys, having trouble managing the wet ball. In the wind, he probably has the best arm strength of any of the Titans quarterbacks. So the wind doesn't necessarily affect him as much as it affects other guys. Saw some videos of him throwing darts before practice started, or I guess during the individual workouts for the quarterbacks in practice on Monday. And he's just really been putting the days together, and they haven't all been as good as last week when he was throwing 5 touchdown passes at practice, and part of that is, the offense as a whole. But I want to compare him to Malik Willis because the big question to me here is, at what point do they give Levis more opportunity with the twos? Because he's had some run. He had a red zone period last week where he got to run with the twos, but even since then, it's mostly been with the threes. The 2-minute drill was with the threes on Monday. The red zone stuff on Monday was with the threes. But something happened with the twos with Malik Willis where the coaches apparently were, emphatically harping on him during the drive that he needed to move faster, that he needed to get to the line of scrimmage faster, get the offense organized faster. And there's just been some issues with the operation that we saw in training camp and preseason with Malik Willis running the show last year, where you'd hope he would have taken a big step forward. And by all accounts, he has taken a big step forward in terms of his ability to be a leader on the field and understand the offense, but none of those things are going to help him process the game faster. And I think that that's where he struggled the most, standing in the pocket, not throwing the ball when he had open receivers. Will Levis, on the other hand, has not had those issues. He came from a pro-style offense in college where he had to run that operation cleanly, and everything's been clean in training camp so far, except for, a couple dropped snaps on maybe the first couple days of training camp. But since then, it's been pretty clean for him. When Malik Willis is out there running a 2-minute drive and getting a pre-snap penalty, it was, I think, a false start was the report, which isn't necessarily his fault, but it's also not his fault. Getting everyone lined up quickly, if everyone's at the line of scrimmage ready to go, you probably don't have that penalty. Will Levis not experiencing those issues. I think that this team values that aspect of quarterback play more than they value off-script playmaking ability or scrambling ability or whatever. And that's probably a big reason why Josh Dobbs started the last 2 games of last season was because of his experience running that operation. All this to say, I think it's only a matter of time before Will Levis surpasses Malik Willis. I think he was maybe the Titans' best quarterback at practice on Monday. Granted, he's playing against the third stringers, so it's not, I'm not trying to ding Ryan Tannehill by saying that, but I'm really interested to see how they dole out these snaps in the preseason, especially week 1. We don't know if Ryan Tannehill is going to play at all. Are they going to give Malik Willis the entire first half and Will Levis the entire second half? That'd be my expectation. What would it take from Levis in that second half to get the entire first half next week is my question.
Well, before I answer it, I want to address a couple things.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but you sort of jogged my memory a little bit when you said you think they sort of value getting the operation right more so than the off-script play. That's an interesting thing to say, and I think you're probably right, because I just remembered last year when the offense was playing terribly. Remember when they used to ask Mike Vrabel about Todd Downing, and instead of throwing him under the bus and saying the offense sucked, he would say, well, I think, the play calls getting out in a timely fashion, the communication's been good, like all that stuff that matters, but wasn't actually leading to good results. Mike Vrabel chose to compliment as opposed to saying, we got it, we're the 32nd ranked passing offense. We stink, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's probably true that they value some of that stuff more than they do the off-script playmaking ability. What would it take from Will Levis? I mean, I'm not as confident as you are that this 8 ball is going to swing all the way around or the pendulum's going to swing all the way around. I do think
because Will Levis is
number 8. Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah, I like that.
I don't think we're going to see a situation anytime soon where he's going to completely overtake Malik Willis for being the number 2 quarterback, seeing all of the number 2 reps with the second string offense. But I do think you'll continue seeing the gradual growth that we have been seeing. I expect to see more of a timeshare there, right? Whereas early on, as you said, Willis was essentially getting all of the reps with the second team offense. And now all of a sudden, Levis is starting to mix in a little bit more with the 2s. That's going to increase, in my opinion, right? As long as he keeps practicing well and stringing together good days, which by all accounts he has been doing, I do think he's going to start getting more runs with the 2s. With that said, I don't know how much of this you want to get into, because I know we got the YouTube exclusive coming, but I'd be pretty shocked if it wasn't Malik Willis that gets the start against the Bears on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And the reports are out there that Justin Fields will get some play time in this week 1 opener. So the Titans are going to see Fields. I wouldn't rule out that we see Tannehill for a series or 2. Like, because there's only 3 preseason games now, like we still don't really have the cadence for what Mike Vrabel likes to do with his starters. It's been such an interesting, COVID stuff and then preseason getting shortened, and like, have they found the rhythm that they really like with that, preseason playing time? I doubt we'll see Derrick Henry, for example.
No.
I would be surprised if we see Tannehill, but I wouldn't rule it out, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. I do think Willis will probably start, but it might be like the 3rd drive that he comes in. It might be the beginning of the game. I don't know. I wish the Titans media had asked Mike Vrabel that on Monday, and for some reason nobody thought to ask how much playing time are the starters going to get in the preseason.
Well, I imagine he'll get asked that question later this week, probably a bit closer to the date. But I don't necessarily agree with you. I do and I don't, I guess, because no, it wouldn't totally floor me if Ryan Tannehill got a little bit of play. But it's worth acknowledging, since he became the starter, he's never played in the preseason since he's become the starter. So
interesting.
So I don't think that he'll play. I won't rule it out because, he's not Aaron Rodgers, right? He's not the second coming of Tom Brady. So it's not it doesn't go without saying that you're going to hold him out for sure. If he does play, and the only reason I'm kind of cracking the window open for that possibility is because of all of the stuff we've talked about, the newness, right? Having a new offensive coordinator, having a new offensive line. Maybe you want to get him some run with all the new pieces, but I would expect we do not see Ryan Tannehill during the preseason.
Okay, you make a really good point there that he hasn't played since becoming the starter. So in that case, maybe we won't see him. But something very interesting we will see is the head coach of the Titans on Saturday will not be Mike Vrabel. He's going to be there. He's going to be on the sidelines. He's going to be assisting. But Terrell Williams, a defensive line coach who was promoted to assistant head coach earlier this offseason, will be taking over the head coaching duties for this game. It's a really cool thing that Vrabel's doing here, giving his assistant coach a chance for some national level exposure. The game's televised on NFL Network. It's not just a local market game. So I love this move from Vrabel. It'll be interesting to see how things change with Terrell Williams calling the shots. Like, when it comes to game planning throughout the week, first of all, they're not super opponent specific game planning for preseason anyway. They're going through the motions to like rehearse for the regular season what a week of game planning would be like, but it's not the same as if, they were actually looking at dissecting an opponent. Secondly, like Vrabel's going to be involved in all of that throughout the week leading up to the game. So it's not like Terrell Williams is taking over for a week. But it'll be interesting to see what happens on Saturday with him calling the shots on the sideline and if, anything looks different than what we would have expected to see anyway, right?
Well, I think the most important thing is that this is a terrific opportunity for Coach Terrell Williams. One he deserves, right? And Mike Vrabel can't say enough good things about him. He promoted him to assistant head coach earlier this summer, right? So, and you look at the job Coach T has done over the past few years. I mean, you can go all the way back, right? Like the development of players, like you're seeing it right now with Jaden Peavy, right? You've seen it with Jeffrey Simmons, and he might be an easy one to coach, but go to back T.R. Tart, undrafted free agent. I think to last year and how they got the most production possible out of DeMarcus Walker and Mario Edwards Jr., right? Two guys that were essentially on the streets, right, when the Titans brought them in and ended up playing great football. Like Coach T has been maximizing the talent of this defensive line for as long as he's been here. So he's an excellent coach. He deserves this opportunity. If anything, you talked earlier, full circle, you talked about how these are opportunities to grow and learn. This is going to be an opportunity for Coach T, starting with Friday's practice, I believe Vrabel said, to get the sort of the team used to that, used to having Coach T run the show, and then he'll run it on Saturday as the head coach. So that I'm so excited for him. It's a great opportunity. And I hope, one day, as he very much deserves, he'll get an opportunity to interview to be a defensive coordinator somewhere. Or heck, maybe he gets a surprise interview to be a head coach somewhere. And if he gets one of those two opportunities, heck, one could be in Tennessee one day, right? If, for example, Shane Bowen gets a head coaching job or something, or the Titans move on from him, whatever it is. If Coach T ever gets one of those interviews, which I think he eventually will, this experience will hopefully have helped him, right? Serving as the head coach for a single game. It's not the first time the Titans have done something like this, although the circumstances are different. Ironically speaking, 2 years ago against the Chicago Bears, in the preseason finale, Coach Vrabel was out due to COVID-19 related protocols. So they had to make some changes on the fly. Coach Craig Aukerman was the one who served as the head coach for that game, and Stretch, as they call him, John Stryker, was handling in-game decision-making and communications, play clock management. So if Vrabel's done something like this before, again, that was sort of out of necessity, right, due to the protocols. But it's great to see Coach T getting this opportunity. And it's nice to see that it's not out of necessity. It's not because Coach Vrabel has to miss this game for any, sickness-related reason. Hats off to Coach T. I'm sure he's going to do a great job, and I know the players are fired up about it.
Yeah, same. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for him. And Mike Vrabel said it's an opportunity for us and a great opportunity for everyone involved, which, classic Mike Vrabel is saying nothing by putting a lot of words in a sentence. But yeah, no, it's really cool, and I'm looking forward to it. So I guess that does it for this episode.
I'd say so. I think we covered a lot in these 35, 40 minutes roughly. Yeah, that's what's going on at training camp. Again, we will be back later this week on the YouTube channel. So if you're just listening to the audio version of this podcast, we implore you once again to please head over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button. We're crossing the 400. We keep climbing every week. I feel like I say a bigger number, and it's great. But our goal right now is 1,000. So we need all you guys that are listening to the pod. Even if you don't watch us on YouTube, just go subscribe on YouTube. Help us grow, help us reach more Titans fans out there with, the content that we're hoping is great content to deliver to you. So anyway, we will be back later this week with a video on the right tackle position battle, the big best candidates, most likely options, who's going to win, and who's going to be the Titans' day one starter at right tackle. Tune into the channel later this week for that. And then closer to Saturday, we're going to have a preseason week 1 preview video, again, just on YouTube. So tune in for that as well. That's going to be a fun one to discuss. I cannot wait. Football is essentially back. I mean, we don't have another Saturday between now and January without football because we got preseason for the next 3 weeks. Then we got college football starting. And then, of course, the NFL starts, and we'll be taking over our Sundays and, our lives for the better part of 4 months. So that's going to be great. Can't wait to get into all that. Follow us on Twitter. Justin is at JustinM_NFL. I am at Titans Film Room. We will be back next week in audio form and later this week in video form. So until then, you guys stay safe out there and tighten up.
A Broadway sports media production.